Welcome to InFocus with Ejaz Haider. In this program, we discuss a range of issues. The platform for this program is the Center for Security, Strategy and Policy Research. CESPA is a policy research center housed in the University of Lahore and researches contemporary security and strategic issues. This program is part of that effort, and we aim to speak with national and international scholars and policy experts on a broad range of issues that have a bearing on Pakistan. Stay with us, and I shall be shortly back with today's program. Welcome back to InFocus with Ejaz Haider. Today we shall discuss the changing regional and international dynamics following Russia's invasion of Ukraine and how Turkey is placing itself center stage to take advantage of the new opportunities created by that conflict. To quote from a recent paper written by Dr. Tuba Eldem, while Moscow has been distracted with its war in Ukraine, Ankara has formed new strategic partnerships with Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan, and connectivity projects have played a key role in their formation. Ankara has also become more involved in multilateral initiatives such as the Organization of Turkic States and the Trans-Caspian International Transport Route, unquote. Turkey wants to achieve this through the Middle Corridor to serve both as a regional economic zone comprising Central Asia, the Caucasus, and Turkey, but also as an increasingly attractive alternative route between Europe and China. To this end, Turkey is aiming to capture 30% of the flows that pass through the Northern Corridor by diverting them to the Middle Corridor. It is promoting this through bilateral, trilateral, and multilateral initiatives that seek to take advantage of Turkey's unique geographical position at the heart of the Europe-Asia-Africa trade triangle. To discuss Turkey's efforts to place itself center stage, I have with me Dr. Tuba Eldem, the author of the paper I mentioned. Dr. Eldem is Associate Professor of Political Science at Fenerbahce University. With her is Dr. Birol Baskan, a non-resident scholar at the Middle East Institute. Dr. Baskan is author of 2 books and is working on a 3rd manuscript. So thank you to both panelists. Let's begin with Turkey's positioning, and this is to Dr. Tuba Eldem. And Turkey's positioning before, but more so, since Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Now, I refer to the invasion because if Russia had actually managed to overrun Kyiv, Turkey would be facing a more troublesome strategic environment from the Black Sea through the Caucasus to Syria. Now it is placing itself as a balancer, selling drones to Ukraine, but also guaranteeing grain export from Ukraine by getting Russia on board. So it seems to me, Tuba Eldem, that Turkey is looking at its own position as a central one, and also looking at the world in terms of multipolar. Is that impression correct?
Hi, Ejaz. Yes, I think it's correct. Yes, Turkey's position is generally considered as a swinging or balancing position, but I think it shouldn't be surprising because the international security structure is undergoing tectonic shifts from unipolarity to multipolarity, which has both ideational and material dimensions that has manifested itself in the growing contestation of what NATO calls rule-based international order, as well as it has material dimensions that is showing itself as a renewed geopolitical competition among 3 great powers, namely the United States, China, and Russia. So I think this geopolitical competition will be shaped by strategic connectivity, or in other words, this contention between great powers and aspiring great powers over physical and non-physical linkages between peoples, economies, polities, and geographies will be the determining factors or the parameters of what, again, NATO calls strategic competition. So I think the prevalent sentiment in Ankara is that this geostrategic competition over strategic connectivity enhances the importance of rising regional powers such as Turkey, but also maybe we can consider India, of course, and also maybe Saudi Arabia and Gulf, and provide those rising regional powers to incentives to build alliances and support or disrupt the strategies of great powers pursuing their interest in the regional security complexes. This again new external security structure provides rising regional powers new opportunities to balance the competition between the big powers and incentives to deter the world to shift towards a renewed Cold War fought in multiple domains, not only including the traditional domains of land, sea, and air, but also, and increasingly so, in space and cyber. So this emergence of both multipolar world order and the rising regional or rising strategic competitiveness makes it difficult also for the great powers to channel the strategic flows in favor of them without the participation of these emerging regional powers, such as Turkey. Therefore, in the new external security structure, I think the ability to channel connectivity flows, whether functional flows be like food, energy, trade or weapons, or institutional or cultural flows, will be an important sign of influence and power at the age of strategic competition. And Ankara has so far heavily engaged to exploit this external opportunity structure opened by the Russian invasion of Ukraine. As you mentioned, Ankara has emerged as a strategic balancer of Russia, not only in the war against Ukraine, but also in the South Caucasus, Middle East, Central Asia, as well as in Africa. It has formed strategic partnership with Ukraine, but also with Azerbaijan, Kazakhstan, and Uzbekistan.
I'm going to come to that, Tuba Eldem, because your paper also mentions it. And because of Russia's sort of diminishing, if you will, influence, and this war in Ukraine, the Central Asian states are also, Turkic states especially, moving closer to Ankara. We also going to talk about the Middle Corridor that you wrote about, and of course, the problems with NATO and the European Union. But let me just pull in Birol Baskan into this debate with the same question in terms of Turkey's balancing act, but also a more proactive foreign policy. Birol Baskan.
In the 2000s, Turkey has been very active diplomatically, but with the fallout during the Arab Spring, with the wrong foreign policies towards the Middle East in the 2000s and increasing authoritarianism in Turkey, Turkey has become kind of a rogue state for the Western countries, for the international community, US and the West, of course. But right now it is recovering. Part of that is, of course, Turkey is reconciling with countries in the Middle East with which it has tense relations in the 2000s, starting with Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, Israel, and now Turkey is also trying to improve its relations with Egypt and maybe in the future Syria. So this is not just peculiar to post-US Russian invasion of Ukraine thing, but Turkish foreign policy has been recalibrating its foreign policy for some time to come. And the Russian invasion of Ukraine came kind of as a blessing for Turkish foreign policy. Turkey was already positioned to make a change from the policies that it pursued in the 2000s, which are often described as neo-Ottomanism, or by some and myself included, Islamists. foreign policy. So and of course, if you look at interactions between President Erdogan and other world leaders in the last G20 meetings, for example, you will see that the atmosphere and the kind of approach to President Erdogan has dramatically changed, I guess. So that is something that is already giving strength to a process that already started, I guess, in the last 5 years. Turkey has already been calibrating. But whether Turkey has any ultimate ideal or in the short term, I guess the short term objective was just let's have better relations, let's improve our relations with our neighbors. But then now, with the Russian invasion, it's planning to play maybe more strategic geopolitical roles.
Right. So let's rewind. In fact, it's almost like a continuation of our conversation that day in Istanbul during lunch when we were talking about this. But since you mentioned how Turkey had lost its position in the Middle East, if we go back a little, there was a time when the policy was political stability at home, economic prowess, and zero conflict in the region. But then, post-Arab Spring, all of that changed, and now, as you say, rightly, that Turkey is trying to go back to the Middle East arena and trying to sort out its relations with those countries. So let me take this to Tuba Eldem. So Tuba, Birol talked about this, and in many ways, this Russo-Ukraine war seems to be a blessing in disguise in terms of Turkey's positioning once again. But the problems still remain. For instance, with reference to NATO, one of the recent issues is Turkey's blocking of Sweden and Finland's application. Now, in June, there was a memorandum of understanding, but things have not really worked out. So Turkey lifted its veto, but it also said that Sweden and Finland have to, basically address Turkey's concerns. Very recently, the Swedish Prime Minister was in Ankara. So just give me a sense of where things stand, and this is just one of the problems with NATO. We haven't even come to Turkey's bilateral issues with the US. Tuba Eldem.
As also Professor Baskan told just as seconds ago, yes, Turkey's relations with both, with NATO members were not going very well in the last few years. We have seen a lot of articles published by Western think tanks telling why Turkey is still in NATO. But I think yes, there are certainly problems, but I think both the United States and Turkey are recently showing efforts to solve those problems. Like there is a greater prospects of the deal with the F-16s. So probably and hopefully that United States will provide the F-16s that Turkey sought for. And when we come to, Turkey's kind of delaying tactics to Sweden and Finland, I think the main reason, yes, terrorism, like Turkey insists that NATO should conform to a common understanding of terrorism. Yes, that is important. But also another important factor was the covert or overt arm embargoes imposed on Turkish defense industry. As you know, Turkish defense industry is developing with a very strong pace. And these arm embargoes were slowing that process. And Sweden has already took positive steps in that regard, and it's declared that there will be no more embargoes. So I think that there is a greater prospect that Turkey will not anymore object. And also, I think there is a greater understanding in NATO that in the new, geopolitical reordering, both Turkey needs NATO and also NATO needs Turkey. So I think the relations, although, do not fare well, there are now greater prospects for improvement.
Right, and I believe a lot of what Turkey is doing, for instance, prevailing upon the Kremlin and getting the grain export issue worked out, of course, is something that the EU wants, the US wants that. And then, of course, and we're going to come to the middle corridor, considering that the northern corridor is all but, essentially dysfunctional now for reasons of sanctions, and the sea lanes are much too long. The middle corridor certainly works to the advantage not just of Turkey but also Europe. But Birol Baskan, so NATO membership, Finland and Sweden, they are now reaching out. As I said, the Swedish Prime Minister was in Ankara, and they're hoping that it can be basically smoothened. But so far, this alliance expansion issue has become a major diplomatic headache for NATO. Do you believe that this recent visit is going to make things work?
Make things for Turkey, or
for Turkey and for NATO, in terms of addressing Ankara's concerns and basically, because Jens Stoltenberg, basically he also traveled to Turkey and met with the President Erdogan. So they really want this to happen, but they don't want Turkey to delay it any further.
Well, I guess if you look at the bigger geopolitical picture, I guess we should take into account what's happening in the globe. I guess we are seeing the rising of a rivalry between US and its allies in the West on the one hand, and China and Russia on the other. And I guess the countries are right now walking a tightrope in terms of not falling into one of these two camps. Yeah. Turkey is one of them. Well, some countries have already made a decision to join either, let's say, China and Russia for their domestic reasons. Iran is one of them, for example. Pakistan has a strong urge to be on the side of China, as far as I can see. Turkey is not there yet. Turkey is trying to still kind of balance these two camps and benefit from both sides. Turkey needs both sides, in my opinion. I don't think that Turkey wants to fall strictly and strongly into one camp in the coming decades. So I think Turkey is not going to leave NATO, but Turkey is not going to be fully in the American camp as well. It's going to develop stronger ties with China, with Russia. This is giving Turkey a geopolitical weight. That is Turkey's geopolitical weight. That is Turkey's geopolitical advantage to play. This Finland and Sweden thing, I guess, look, any NATO country is providing the PKK YPG in Syria the same level of support that Sweden and Finland are providing. So I don't think that there is anything special about Sweden and Finland. And everybody, I guess, notes that. I don't think that Turkey has any special frustration with these two countries, but using it as a leverage against NATO and then United States, because there are some problems with them. And the most here, US is providing YPG more military support than Sweden.
Correct.
Well, Germany, France, and others are providing their domestic political. Their political system allow them.
So Birol, basically, what you're suggesting here is that Turkey will green light the membership, but it will continue to pressure, up until that point, will continue to pressure Sweden and Finland to basically address Ankara's concerns and for Ankara to get as much space as it can vis-a-vis these two countries. Have I got that right?
Honestly, I don't think that Sweden and Finland, whatever they do at the end, can satisfy fully Turkey, given their democratic political systems.
Yes.
Never. And Turkey knows that. Yeah. But the thing is that if it will always on the agenda as a bargaining chip vis-a-vis US, vis-a-vis with the NATO members, eventually Turkey might say yes to. But I don't think that is even a major issue for Turkey, except for just recalibrating its relations with the US. I guess Erdogan is a great bargainer, no question about that. I guess eventually he knows how far he should go and eventually use this as a chip, then look for another bargaining chip.
Let me take this to Tuba Eldem. Tuba, do you agree with Birol Baskan when he says that this is basically a bargaining chip?
Yes, I agree. And I think Ankara wants to also send a signal to the United States, Sweden and Finland is just kind of a showcase, I would say. So, because the biggest, when we look at both in terms of the, support to what Turkey considers as a terrorist organization, and also in terms of the embargoes to Turkish defense industry, United States becomes the first power. You know about this F-35s that Turkey has already paid and is not getting it, and now struggling to get the F-16s. So, of course, Turkey tries to show that NATO leave the disposition that NATO's problems are Turkey's problems, but Turkey's problems are not that of NATO. So, wants to exploit this, new opportunity structure in its favor. And we will see how much it will gain. But according to my reading so far, Turkey's bargaining position is going well. Sweden has taken positive steps. Other Western European countries are on the way. And I'm optimistic that United States will also provide those F-16s.
Okay, so on that note, let me increase the degree of difficulty here and take it to Birol Baskan. So, as far as Sweden, Finland is concerned, looks like bargaining, fine. You play your hand like a poker game. But as I said, increasing the degree of difficulty. How should the outside world look at President Erdogan's approach to Greece? I mean, he's actually threatened a war. Now, is that also a bargaining position, or is that just simply a sort of nationalist position in relation to Greece and traditional sort of not entirely happy relations between Turkey and Greece?
Well, Turkey's relations with Greece are always, tense from time to time. Actually, sometimes they go well, sometimes they go tense. In recent years, of course, the major problem is Greece's cooperation with Egypt and Israel in searching gas in the eastern Mediterranean. And I guess that search, that gas exploration, has been going without involving Turkey. Turkey wants to be involved in that exploration. Made some counter moves, even threatened sending some naval warships to the region. But eventually, it is avoided a kind of escalation. I guess that is Turkey's reaction is not really to Greece, but rather a regional constellation which left Turkey outside. And this was one of the reasons why Turkey is right now calibrating its relations with the regional powers. But President Erdogan's kind of a salvos against Greece, in my opinion, have some legitimate concerns, because there are many islands in Aegean Sea between Turkey and Egypt, and those islands, most of them belong to Greece, but they have to be demilitarized. They have to be they cannot be militarized according to the international agreements Turkey and Greece signed. And there are reports, if we trust those reports, obviously, there are reports that Greece are militarizing those islands.
And that's one of the issues of concern.
Yes, but is Erdogan going to war over this issue? I doubt.
So the statement was more bluster than anything real.
It is another way of expressing Turkey's frustration, I guess.
Okay.
I mean, I don't think Greece is a NATO member. No, is it? Yes. It's a NATO member. If Turkey attacked, the whole NATO is going to be
that's right.
Siding with Greece, and then Turkey knows this very well. NATO will not come to the rescue of Turkey, but will definitely come to the rescue of Greece.
That's right.
And I don't think that any sound person, and Erdogan, no matter how ideological he can get, sometimes he's a pragmatist and realist when it comes to foreign policy.
That's true.
Fortunately, I don't think that he will go that far.
Right. Let's get to the middle corridor, which is essentially the peg for this program. Now, Tuba Eldem, there is, it's kind of interesting that on the one hand, Turkey and the European Union have had problems in relation to democratic backsliding in Turkey, increasing unilateral foreign policy. But at the same time, Turkey is a candidate for accession. It's also a key partner in economy and trade, and it is also a strategic partner. And that is where I believe the middle corridor comes in. So give us a gist of your argument in the paper, and then we'll take this to Birol Baskan.
In the paper, I basically argue that one of the important geopolitical consequences of the Russian invasion of Ukraine has been the reinvigoration of the middle corridor. What middle corridor refers is, it's basically initiative developed back in 2009 by Fatih Ceylan, who worked as a permanent representative to NATO. So it is an initiative that seeks to connect Turkey to China, or especially Europe to China through Turkey, via Georgia, Azerbaijan, the Caspian Sea, then either through Kazakhstan or Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan, and Kyrgyzstan. So already before the war, Middle Corridor was gaining popularity as the cargo traffic along this route has increased by 52%.
Just one clarification here. It was conceived in 2009. But I believe the actual work began in 2014 after Russia's annexation of Crimea, when Russia came under sanctions also.
Yes, exactly. The Central Asian countries were not looking very much favorably to Turkey's efforts, mostly because of their asymmetric dependence on Russia. But as you mentioned, after the war, after the Russian invasion of Crimea in 2014, Central Asian countries started to diversify their foreign relations away from Russia. But especially, of course, after the recent war in Ukraine, the interest of these Central Asian countries, especially Kazakhstan, has increased tremendously. So another reason for that, of course, as you mentioned in the beginning of the program, was the sanctions imposed on Russia and Belarus territories through which the Northern Corridor passes. Yes. So these sanctions has decreased transport of the cargo from the Northern Corridor and increased the appeal of the Middle Corridor. A recent World Bank report shows that logistic disruptions have affected all trade flows between Russia and Europe, causing significant delays and inflating already high global freight prices. So these the cargo volume in the Northern Corridor has decreased by 40%. Yeah. So this situation has, of course, increased the appeal of the Middle Corridor, or what...
it's also the shortest route. It's shorter than the Northern route. It's much shorter than the sea lanes. That's right. So...
It is shorter, but
it's also like in terms of the cost, the cost is much less compared to using the Northern route or going through the sea lanes of communication. But go on.
You can I
say...
add something?
Sure.
Can I add something?
Sure.
In terms of the cost. No, in terms of the cost, since the Middle Corridor is a multimodal route, which includes both ferry and railways, it is more expensive than the Northern Corridor. That is one of the biggest problems. That decreases the effectiveness of the Middle Corridor, because you need to change the shipments from the train to the ferry. So that's why in the short run Middle Corridor it will be probably unable to fully replace the Northern Corridor. But in the long run, with the investments in both the soft and hard infrastructure, Middle Corridor can optimize its I would say advantages in terms of being the shortest, as you say, the shortest route.
So could that hard infrastructure be in terms of underground rail tunnels? So instead of unloading the cargo and putting them on the ferries, the train simply goes through?
Yeah, both. For example, since the beginning of the war, new ferries have been have put in service. There wasn't enough ferries, so feeder vessels has been put in the Caspian Sea as well as in the Black Sea. Hard infrastructure also includes like one bill of lading. So, for example, a company ships products from China to Europe under a single bill of lading. So it will, both optimize the transit time and also, it will provide an ease of payment for the companies as well.
Right.
Of course, it also includes the new railways. For example, China has, for more than this year, all of these will, of course, optimize the Middle Corridor.
Okay. Birol Baskan, a quick word about the Middle Corridor as explained by Tuba Eldem. And then before I close the program, I'm going to ask both of you a question, which I shall keep secret for now. But first about the Middle Corridor and then to that question.
I have looked at Dr. Tuba's report on you mentioned. I guess it has a very sound argument and it makes a lot of sense. And it seems that things are going in the way that she describes. I am much more interested in the feasibility of that, geopolitical feasibility. I guess here what Turkey plans does not matter much. Turkey, look, I mean, this pan-Turkish dreams are more than 100 years old. To be able to, develop a stronger economic and eventually political relations with the Turkic world in Central Asia, where Turks believe they descend from are very old and animate passions in Turkey. It animates dreams in Turkey, and it has always appealed to the Turkish public. But in the last 100 years, we have seen many times that the Central Asian republics are not that much into that. In the 1990s, even the 2000s, and right now, an opportunity arose because the Central Asian republics are really kind of concerned about Russians' very aggressive and then behavior, and it is seen in the case of Ukraine and before that Crimea. I understand that this project is also sort of making sense to them, but I guess the player who calls the shot here is not Turkey. It's not even Europe. I guess the real player that the Central Asian republics want to balance Russia is China.
That's right.
And then and given if you looked at the opening games of Beijing, for example, all the Central Asian Republic leaders were there. And then I guess look where President Xi Jinping visited for the first time after the pandemic to Central Asia.
But Birol Baskan,
China puts a lot of.
May I intervene here?
So
I understand.
China has said yes to this.
Yeah. So here's my question. I mean, of course they were there. Of course they there's this giant country with the second largest economy in the world. I mean, they have the fortune or misfortune of being contiguous to that. But and therefore they have to appease China. But at the same time, it seems to me that it makes eminent sense for them to also try and move away and have connections with Turkey. I mean, they have seen how Azerbaijan has actually, taken advantage of its close relations with Ankara. It possibly could not have won the war against Armenia if it hadn't had those relations with. So it seems to me that it makes sense for Central Asian republics to also have one hand, extended towards Ankara, if you will.
Yes, definitely. I am not denying that there is some logic and rationale behind this, and I understand but what I'm talking about, the future feasibility. Right. I mean, the full implementation of the corridor. I guess going back to my very initial point, I guess what is going to determine the fate of this is eventually going to be U.S.-China rivalry.
That's right.
And where Turkey and Central Asian republics fall into these camps, and it's very, very likely that Central Asian republics are going to pick China.
Okay, so I'm going to reveal my secret question now, where I'll take it to Tuba Eldem and bring it back to Birol Baskan. Tuba Eldem, we're talking about a number of things. Lots of it falls into the future, obviously, projected. In June 2023, you're going to have the presidential elections. And there's a lot of talk about how a sort of post-Erdogan Ankara, both in terms of internal governance as also in terms of foreign policy. Give me your sense of, or your prognosis for that.
Yeah, to be frank, I think external opportunity structure works in favor of Erdogan. Yani before the Russian invasion of Ukraine, I would think that a possible change in government is more possible. Now, with this, and President Erdogan is well known with its, ability to become as the winner of every crisis. So now, because of the foreign policy, I think Erdogan hands is strengthening. But of course, Turkey has a lot of economic problems, very high inflation. Turkish lira depreciated enormously. So, even if the government changes, I think there is a difficult path that Turkey needs to follow. And I do not know really. We know that normally United States and the European Union there is an Erdogan fatigue in those Western circles on the one hand.
Isn't there an Erdogan fatigue in Turkey also, or at least some sections, at least as far as the opposition and its voters are concerned?
Of course, domestic fatigue as well.
Okay.
But also, I have the feeling that some circles in the West also would like to maybe, see Erdogan remaining in power.
Oh, right.
That is my secret.
That's very interesting. Birol Baskan.
Well, it's for sure that Erdogan is going to elections with weakened hands. No question about that. Especially his always winning card has been economy. Erdogan has remained in power, has remained popular in Turkey thanks to the economic prosperity that Turkey enjoyed in the 2000s. And then, of course, his voters and people associated that economic prosperity, right or wrong, with Erdogan. And now with the rising inflation rate, with rising with the economic difficulties and economic crisis going on, I guess that image of as a capable leader managing economy well is seriously hurt. And but the thing is that his I guess this is my guess, he is going to win. Because there is no one who is going to beat him yet. So the opposition is going to win, not because they are going to win per se, but Erdogan is going to lose. But if they cannot nominate a candidate which can move the street, which can create his own momentum or her own momentum in the street, and unfortunately, the opposition leader right now, who is dreaming to compete with Erdogan, has not that potential. So the opposition has to find someone who is going to beat Erdogan.
Okay.
And if the opposition cannot agree on such a candidate, I guess Erdogan for sure is going to take this election again.
Right. Thank you so much, Dr. Tuba Eldem. Thank you, Dr. Birol Baskan, for this very insightful discussion. This is all for this episode of InFocus with Ejaz Haider. Hope you enjoyed the discussion. Do like and subscribe to the CESPA channel. It helps us to bring quality discussion to you. Take care and goodbye.